Good evening. It's 7:24. We're going to read some more of this book. This is going to be chapter 23, so it's it's going to be a longer chapter. It'd probably take 30 minutes to read it. We ended the chapter 22. This is in the podcast. The chapter chapter 22 ended with the human who's fell inside the race, inside the earth, and he's walking amongst the Vril. When he refuses to marry the daughter, he's told that he will become a cinder, reduced to cinder, and or he will be kept in a cage for the rest of his life, because no one is allowed to leave underneath there and go back to the earth, because their existence would put their whole civilization at risk. So that's where it ended. So we're going to do chapter 23. Jeannie, you going to be back on later? Yeah, I probably will. So I'm going to have to read this for now, is what I'm going to do. And I hope, if I can be heard, can you give me a thumbs up if I can be heard on here? Yeah, that'd be great. Now, this is not a popular video that I'm supposed to be doing. It's not. I'm not supposed to be talking about it. Okay, you don't have to give me a thumbs up because I hear myself on here. We're going to start to read in chapter 3, the Vril, the coming race. They are a race of beings who live inside the earth. And they don't have no sunlight in there. They got lights. They make their own lights and stuff like that. They got big, large wings. They're like 7 feet tall. They don't eat meat. They hunt down great big gigantic reptilians like 100 feet long, and they take their staff that has the Vril energy in it, and they can reduce that reptile to ashes. Their power that comes out of the staffs, it goes 500 to 1,000 miles with just the power. One child alone holding his Vril rod can do a lot of damage. And the power of the Vril energy. It's supposed to be fictitious. This is not supposed to be real. But this stuff has been written in a book, and we're going to read it. I confessed that my conversation with Lynn and the extreme coolness with which he stated his inability to control the dangerous caprice of his daughter, and treated the idea of the reduction to a cinder to which her amorous flame might expose my too seductive person, took away the pleasure that I should otherwise have had in the contemplation of my host's country seat, and the astonishing perfection of the machinery by which his farming operations were conducted. The house differed in appearance from a massive and somber building which Lynn inhabited in the city, and which akin to the rocks out of which the city had been hewn, I feel like I've got something on my face, had been hewn into shape. The walls of the country seat were composed by trees placed a few feet apart from each other, and the interstices being filled with the transparent metallic substance. A transparent metallic substance which serves the purpose of glass among the iron. That is interesting. So they have, now let's listen to this. They have a transparent metallic substance which serves the purpose of glass among the iron, or among that civilization. It's pretty interesting. These trees were all in flower, and the effect was very pleasing, if not in the best taste. We were received at the porch by lifelike automata, who conducted us into a chamber, the like to which I have never seen before, but have often on a summer day dreamingly imagined. It was a blower, half room, half garden, The walls were one mass of climbing flowers, the open spaces which we call windows, and in which here the metallic surfaces were slided back, commanded various views, some of the wild landscape with its lakes and rocks, some of which small limited expanses answering to our conservatories, filled with tiers of flower. Along the sides of the room were flower beds, interspersed with cushions for repose. In the center of the floor was a cistern and a fountain of that liquid light. There's a fountain of liquid light, which I have presumed to be naphtha. It was luminous and of a roseate hue. I need a drink of water. Excuse me. It sufficed without lamps to light up the room with a subdued radiance. All around the fountain was carpeted with a soft, deep lichen, not green. I have never seen that color in the vegetation of this country, but a quiet brown, on which the eye reposes with the same sense of relief as that with which in the upper world it reposes on green. In the outlets upon flowers, which I have compared to our conservatories, there were singing birds innumerable, which, while we remained in the room, sang in those harmonies of tune to which they are, in these parts, so wonderfully trained. The roof was open. The whole scene had charms for every sense, music from birds, fragrance from the flowers, and varied beauty to the eye at every aspect. About all was a voluptuous repose. What a place, methought, for a honeymoon, if a gay bride were a little less formidably armed, not only with the rights of a woman, but with the powers of a man. But when one thinks of a guy, so learned, so tall, so stately, so much above the standard of the creature we call woman, as was Z, no. Even if I had felt no fear of being reduced to a cinder, it is not of her I should have dreamed in that bower so constructed for dreams of poetic love. The automata reappeared, serving one of those delicious liquids from which the innocent wines excuse me, of the Vril yaw. Okay, let me do this. How we doing over here? You all be doing it? If I pause for a moment. Hello, Applebucks, honey. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. We got it going on. Yeah, it's a happy new year for some people. Truly, said I, this is a charming residence, and I can scarcely conceive why you do not settle yourself here instead of amid the gloomier abodes of the city. As responsible to the community for the administration of light, I am compelled to reside chiefly in the city, and can only come hither for short intervals. But since I understand from you that no honors are attached to your office, and it involves some trouble, why do you accept it? Why are you doing it for free? Each of us obeys without question the command of the Tur, he said. Be it requested that Alf Lynn should be the commissioner of light. So I had no choice, but having held the office now for a long time, the cares, which were at first unwelcome, have become, if not pleasing, at least endurable. We are all formed by custom. Even the difference of our race from the savage is but the transmitted continuance of custom, which becomes, through hereditary descent, part and parcel of our nature. You see, there are Arna who even reconcile themselves to the responsibilities of chief magistrate, but no one would do so if his duties had not been rendered so light, or if there were any questions as to compliance with his requests. Not even if you thought the requests unwise or unjust. We do not allow ourselves to think so, and indeed, everything goes on as if each and all governed themselves according to immemorial custom. When the chief magistrate dies or retires, how do you provide for his successor? The Arn, who has discharged the duties of the chief magistrate for many years, is the best person to choose by whom those duties may be understood, and he generally names his successor. His son, perhaps? Seldom that. But it is not an office anyone desires or seeks, and a father naturally hesitates to constrain his son. But if the Tur himself declined to make a choice, for fear it might be supposed that he owed some grudge to the person on whom his choice would settle, then there are 3 of the colleges of sages who draw lots among themselves, which shall have the power to elect the chief. We consider that the judgment of one Arn of ordinary capacity is better than the judgment of 3 or more, however wise they may be, for among 3 there would probably be disputes, and where there are disputes, passion clouds the judgment. The worst choice made by the one who has no motive in choosing wrong is better than the best choice made by many who have many motives for not choosing right. You reverse in your policy the maxims adopted in my country. Are you all in your country satisfied with your governors? All, certainly not. The governors that most please some are sure to be those most displeasing to others. Then our system is better than yours. For you it may be, but according to our system, a Tish could not be reduced to a cinder if a female compelled him to marry her. And as a Tish, I sigh to return to my native world. Take courage, my dear little guest. Z can't compel you to marry her. She can only entice you to do so. Don't be enticed. Come and look around at my domain. We went forth into a close, bordered with sheds. For though the Arn keep no stock for food, there are some animals which they rear for milking and others for shearing. The former have no resemblance to our cows, nor the latter to our sheep, nor do I believe that such a species exists amongst them. They use the milk of 3 varieties of animal. One resembles the antelope, but it is much larger, being as tall as a camel, and the other 2 are smaller, and though differing somewhat from each other, resemble no creature I ever saw on earth. They are very sleek and of rounded proportions, their color that of a dappled deer, with very mild countenances and beautiful dark eyes. The milk of these 3 creatures differs in richness and taste. It is usually diluted with water and flavored with the juice of a peculiar and perfumed fruit, and in itself is very nutritious and palatable. The animal whose fleece serves them for clothing and many other purposes is more like the Italian she-goat than any other creature, but is considerably larger, has no horns, and is free from the displeasing odor of our goats. Its fleece is not thick, but very long and fine. It varies in color, but is never white, more generally of a slate-like or lavender hue. For the clothing, it is usually worn dyed to suit the taste of the wearer. These animals were exceedingly tame and were treated with extraordinary care and affection by the children, chiefly the females who tended them. We then went through the vast storehouses filled with grains and fruits. I may here observe that the main staple of food among these people consists, firstly, of a kind of corn much larger in ear than our wheat, and which by culture is perpetually being brought into new varieties of flavor. And secondly, of a fruit of about the size of a small orange, which, when gathered, is hard and bitter. It is stowed away for many months in their warehouses, and then becomes succulent and tender. Its juice, which is of dark red color, enters into most of their sauces. They have many kinds of fruit of the nature of the olive, from which delicious oils are extracted. They have plant somewhat resembling the sugar cane, but its juices are less sweet and of a delicate perfume. They have no bees nor honey-making insects, but they make much use of a sweet gum that oozes from a coniferous plant, not unlike the Araucaria, Araucaria. Their soil teems also with esculent roots and vegetables, which it is the aim of their culture to improve and vary to the utmost. And I never remember any meal among this people, however it might be confined to the family household, in which some delicate novelty in such articles of food was not introduced. In fine, as I observed, where am I at, Gina? In fine, as I before observed, their cookery is exquisite, so diversified and nutritious that one does not miss animal food, and their own physical forms suffice to show that with them at least meat is not required for superior production of muscular fiber. They have no grapes. The drinks extracted from their fruits are innocent and refreshing. Their staple beverage, however, is water, in the choice of which they are very fastidious, distinguishing at once the slightest impurity. My younger son takes great pleasure in augmenting our produce, said Athlin, as we pass through the storehouses, and therefore will inherit these lands, which constitute the chief part of my wealth. To my elder son, such inheritance would be a great trouble and affliction. Are there many sons among you who think the inheritance of vast wealth would be great trouble and affliction? Certainly. They are indeed very few of the Vril who do not consider that a fortune much above the average is a heavy burden. We are rather a lazy people after the age of childhood, and do not like undergoing more cares than we can help. And great wealth does give its owner many cares. For instance, it marks us out for public offices, which none of us like and none of us can refuse. It necessitates our taking a continued interest in the affairs of any of our poorer countrymen, so that we may anticipate their wants and see that no one fall into poverty. There is an old proverb amongst us which says, "The poor man's need is the rich man's shame." Pardon me if I interrupt you for a moment. You allow that some, even of the Vril, know want and need relief? If by want you mean that the destitution that prevails in a Kumpash, that is impossible with us unless an Arn has, by some extraordinary process, got rid of all his means, cannot or will not immigrate, and has either tired out of the affectionate age of his relations or personal friends, or refuses to accept it. Well then, does he not supply the place of an infant or an automaton and become a laborer, a servant? No. Then we regard him as an unfortunate person of unsound reason and place him at the expense of the state in a public building where every comfort and every luxury that can mitigate his affliction are lavished upon him. But an Arn does not like to be considered out of his mind, and therefore such cases occur so seldom that the public building I speak of is now a deserted ruin, and the last inmate of it was an Arn whom I recollect to have seen in my childhood. He did not seem conscious of loss of reason, and wrote globs, which was poetry. When I spoke of wants, I meant such wants as an Arn with desires larger than his means sometimes entertains, for expensive singing birds, or bigger houses, or country gardens, or the obvious way to satisfy such wants is to buy of him something he sells. Hence, Arns, like myself, who are very rich, are obliged to buy a great many things that they do not require, and live on a very large scale where they might prefer to live on a small one. For instance, the great size of my house in the town is a source of much trouble to my wife, and even to myself, but I am compelled to have it thus incommodiously large, because as the richest man, the richest Arn of my community, I am appointed to entertain the strangers from other communities when they visit us, which they do in great crowds twice a year. When certain periodical entertainments are held, and when relations scattered throughout all the realms of the Vril joyfully reunite for a time. This hospitality, on a scale so extensive, is not to my taste, and therefore I should have been happier had I been less rich. But we all must bear the lot assigned to us in this short passage through time that we call life. After all, what are 100 years, more or less, to the ages through which we must pass hereafter? Luckily, I have one son who likes great wealth. It is a rare exception to the general rule, and I cannot myself understand. He doesn't understand it. This is chapter 23. After this conversation, I sought to return to the subject which continued to weigh on my heart, viz., the chances to escape from Z. But my host politely declined to renew the topic and summoned our airboat. On our way back, we were met by Z. Oh my gosh. Who have found us gone on her return from the College of Sages, had unfurled her wings and flown in search of us. Oh, that's precious, you all. But he don't think it's precious because he don't like Z. He don't like Z. Her grand, but to me unalluring. I can't help but laugh. Her grand, but to me an alluring countenance brightened. Brightened as she beheld me. Her face was all aglow when she saw this man. He did not like it. Well, that's just too bad. That she can't help it. She can't help it. You can't help who you fall in love with, you all. You cannot help it. Oh my gosh. And poising herself beside the boat on her large outspread plumes, her great big wings, she said reproachfully to Athlin, "Oh, Father, was it right in you to hazard the life of our guest in a vehicle to which he is so unaccustomed? He might, by an incautious movement, fall over the side, and alas, he is not like us. He has no wings. It were death to him to fall, dear one." She added, accosting my shrinking self in a softer voice, "Have you no thought of me that you should thus hazard a life which has become almost a part of mine?" She's just about claimed him. "Never again be thus rash, unless I am thy companion. What terror thou hast stricken into me!" Gina, do you think that's funny? Oh, I think it's real funny. I really think it's funny. Oh my gosh, you all. That's funny. Well, she's serious. No, she ain't playing here. She is not playing. I glanced furtively at Athlin, expecting at least that he would indignantly reprove his daughter for expressions of anxiety and affection, which under all the circumstances would, in the world above ground, be considered immodest in the lips of a young female addressed to a male not affianced to her, even if of the same rank as herself. But so confirmed are the rights of the female in that region, and so absolutely foremost among those rights do females claim the privilege of courtship, that Athlin would no more have thought of reproving his virgin daughter than he would have thought of disobeying the orders of the Tur. In that country, custom, as he implied, is all in all. He answered mildly, "Z, the Tish is in no danger, and it is my belief that he can take very good care of himself. I would rather that he let me charge myself with his care. O heart of my heart, it was in the thought of thy danger that I first felt how much I love thee." Oh my gosh, it's already come out of her mouth and her father has heard it. Oh my goodness. He didn't want to hear it. Too bad. She has spoke. Oh my gosh. Never did man feel in such a false position as I did. These words were spoken loud in the hearing of Z's father, in the hearing of the child who steered. I blushed with shame for them and for her, and could not help replying angrily, "Z, either you mock me, which as your father's guess misbecomes you, or the words you utter are improper for a maiden guide to address even to an Arn of her own race, if he has not wooed her with the consent of her parents. How much more improper to address them to a Tish, who has never presumed to solicit your affections, and who can never regard you with other sentiments than those of reverence and awe. Oh my gosh, you all. He's broke her heart. I would not want to hear that. That's kind of sad. What about her feelings? What about her feelings? Athlin made me a covert sign of approbation, but said nothing. Be not so cruel, exclaimed Z, still in a sonorous accent. Can love command itself where it is truly felt? Do you suppose that a maiden guy will conceal a sentiment that it elevates her to feel? What a country you must have come from. You tell him, Z. You tell him. Here Athlin gently interposed, saying, among the Tisha, the rights of your sex do not appear to be established, and at all events my guest may converse with you more freely if unchecked by the presence of others. To this remark, Z made no reply, but darting on me a tender, reproachful glance, agitated her wings and fled homeward. That was not nice of him, you all. It wasn't. I had counted, at least, on some aid from my host, I said bitterly, in the perils to which his own daughter exposes me. I gave you the best aid I could, but to contradict a guy in her love affairs is to confirm her purpose. She allows no counsel to come between her and her affections. I'm going to stop it at there, you all. I like that. That was so cute, but he didn't think it was cute at all, you all. You got this beautiful woman with wings. She fell in love with a human on the surface, and the human didn't like it, but she spoke up. She spoke up and she said her piece. And they've already told him he's going to get reduced to ashes if he refuses, and or he could be held in a cage for the rest of his life because he ain't going to be able to go above ground anymore. Yeah, so that was, I like that. You like it, Gina? Oh, I did like it. I like it. That's right, you are. We're going to stop there. Unless you want to go more, because that was chapter 23. Oh, chapter 24 is short. We got to go to chapter 24. It's really short. We can do it, you all. We can do it. Let me do this, you all. Hold on one second. I'm going to get up. Gina, are you in your pajamas still? I've been in my pajamas all day long. First time in my life. All day long, you all. So, yeah. I think that was great. I want to see what, I want to see what the next chapter is. On alighting from the airboat, a child accosted Athlin in the hall with a request that he would be present at the funeral obsequies of a relation who had recently departed from that netherworld. Now I had never seen a burial place or cemetery amongst this people, and glad to seize even so melancholy an occasion to defer an encounter with Z, I asked Athlin if I might be permitted to witness him, the interment of his relation, unless indeed it were regarded as one of those sacred ceremonies to which a stranger to their race may not be admitted. The departure of an Arn to a happier world, answered my host, when, as in the case of my kinsman, he has lived so long in this as to have lost pleasure in it, is rather a cheerful, though quiet festival than a sacred ceremony, and you may accompany me if you will. Preceded by the child messenger, we walked up the main street to a house at some little distance, and entering the hall, were conducted to a room on the ground floor, where we found several persons assembled round a couch on which lay the deceased. It was an old man who had, as I was told, lived beyond his 130th year. So they only live about as long as the humans, right? To judge by the calm smile on his countenance, he had passed away without suffering. One of the sons, who was now the head of the family, and who seemed in vigorous middle life, though he was considerably more than 70, stepped forward with a cheerful face and told Athlin that the day before his father had passed, he had seen a dream his departed Guy, and was eager to be reunited with her, and restored to youth beneath the nearer smile of the all-good. While these two were talking, my attention was drawn to a dark, metallic substance at the farther end of the room. It was about 20 feet in length, narrow in proportion, and all closed round, save near the roof. There were small round holes through which might be seen a red light. From the interior emanated a rich and sweet perfume, and while I was conjecturing what purpose this machine was to serve, all the timepieces in the town struck the hour with their solemn musical chime, and as that sound ceased, music of a more joyous character, but still of a joy subdued and tranquil, rang through the chamber and from the walls beyond in a choral peal. Symphonious with the melody, those in the room lifted their voices in chant. The words of this hymn were simple. They expressed no regret, no farewell, but rather a greeting to the new world whither the deceased had preceded the living. Indeed, in their language, the funeral hymn is called the birth song. Then the corpse, covered by a long cerement, was tenderly lifted up by 6 of the nearest kinfolk and borne towards the dark thing I have described. I pressed forward to see what happened. A sliding door or panel at one end was lifted up, the body deposited within on a shelf, and the door reclosed. A spring at the side touched, a sudden whooshing sound, sighing sound heard from within, and lo, the other end of the machine, the lid fell down, and a small handful of smoldering dust dropped into a patera placed to receive it. The son took up the patera and said, in what I understood afterward was the usual form of words, "Behold, how great is the Maker! To this little dust he gave form and life and soul. It needs not this little dust for him to renew form and life and soul. To the beloved one we shall soon see again." Each present bowed his head and pressed his hand to his heart. Then a young female child opened a small door through the wall, and I perceived in the recesses shelves on which were placed many portraits, like that which the son held, save that they all had covers. With such a cover Guy now approached the son, and placed it over the cup, on which it closed with a spring. On the lid were engraven the name of the deceased and these words, "Lent to us. Here the date of birth. Recalled from us. Here the date of death." The closed door shut with a musical sound, and all was over. That's it, you all. That's it. We're going to enter it. No, we ain't going to enter it. We're going to end it right there. Yeah. Gina, you shouldn't have ended it on that. I can't help it. Yeah. Can I help it, you all? I can't. I am going to go I'm going to go. This was an interesting reading. I'm going to come to the screen because we read, because I think that's a long one. The one afterward is a long chapter. I'm not going to read it. We read 23. Is that what we read? 23 and 24. I'm going to come on here, and I'm going to put the chapter 23 through 24. Voila, that was really interesting. Gina, honey, you going to press the hearts? Watch my little thing. You can't see my little thing. I pressed those hearts too, you all. I did. I'm going to go. I'm going to go, y'all. Give this video a thumbs up. It is in the podcast. And with that being said, thank you. It's 8:05. And hello, wherever you are in any part of the world. Hello, from my heart to yours. Love you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Gina, will we see you later? You probably will see me later. I might stay up till midnight. Will you, Gina? Maybe. Probably. What will you do? Don't know. Don't know. Don't know. But that's okay, you. I thank you and thank